Again, hello and welcome to the community meeting for the City of Tallahassee Market District Multipurpose Stormwater Project and Blueprints Market District Placemaking Project. This meeting is being recorded to ensure that we capture everyone's input accurately. I'm Susan Emanuel, the Public Information Officer for Blueprint, and I'll be your moderator. This session will focus on the park concept, which strives to balance what is possible on the site and what the community would like to see at the park. We'll follow the presentation with a question and answer session. And the primary method that we receive community feedback on this park concept is to have a conversation with you. So please stay on the line after the presentation and join us. The meeting lasts about 90 minutes and most of the time is reserved for the Q&A session, and we'll do our best to include everyone's input. Be aware that if you have additional questions that we don't get to today, you can always contact the project team through email or phone or through the project website, TallahasseeMarketDistrict.com. The project team with us today includes Autumn Calder, who's the director of the Blueprint Infrastructure Program, Sue Tansky, who's Blueprint's project manager for the Market District Placemaking Project, Jason Smith from the City of Tallahassee, who is responsible for managing all of the infrastructure related items on this project, such as roadway improvements, utilities, and stormwater. We have Mary Margaret Jones, the president, and Kurt Reeder, principal of the Hargraves Jones Landscape Architecture Firm. In partnership with DPB and Associates, they're working to bring us a park that is reflective of this community's ideas and creates a vibrant new community gathering space. If you're new to the project, this is a Blueprint 2020 project funded by the local 1-cent sales tax that implements infrastructure projects in Tallahassee-Leon County. For the Market District Park element of this project, the public outreach and technical analysis have resulted in the park concept that is being presented today and will be presented to the Intergovernmental Agency Board, which is the city and county commissioners sitting as one body, for final approval at their May meeting. We have received input on park features through prior and ongoing outreach, and the park concept has integrated the community's vision for the park with what is both financially feasible and physically possible on the site. We're going to start off with a presentation from Jason Smith with an update on the stormwater and roadway elements of the project. Jason, if you'd share your screen.
Sure. Well, thank you, Susan. It's good to be here for our 4th series of meetings for this project. I'm going to provide a very brief update on the infrastructure improvements. The primary elements of the city's multi-purpose project include retrofit and enhancements to the stormwater management system, reconstruction and improvements to area roadways, intersections, and sidewalks, and utility upgrades. While these infrastructure upgrades are being designed and coordinated with Blueprint's park project, the upgrades are a separate city initiative. Phase 1 of the infrastructure upgrades included modifications to the previously privately owned stormwater ponds in this area to facilitate improvements to McClay Commerce Drive, relocation, upgrades, and aesthetic improvements of the electrical transmission line, and to create space for the park project. Phase 1 was completed in 2017. Phase 2, construction of the West Stormwater facility, began in mid-March and is expected to take approximately 10 months to construct. When complete, the West facility will include a 4-acre wet pond, wetland and upland plantings, and several innovative best management practices that will treat runoff before it enters the stormwater pond, where additional water quality treatment will take place. The western site also incorporates preservation of a large forested natural area to the north of the stormwater facility. This photograph is of the northern end of the West Pond, where the contractor is excavating to construct footers for the large retaining wall. And here's a photograph of concrete recently being placed for some of those footers. In addition to this series of public engagement meetings, we have met with several residents and groups from Hawks Nest, Bob and Trace, and McClay Hammock, to name a few, as well as business owners along McClay Commerce Drive and McClay Boulevard. You may have received 1 or more letters that were mailed to property owners, residents, and businesses prior to construction of Phase 2. Project signs like this one have been posted near the job site. These signs contain project and contact information, and we encourage you to contact us if you have questions or would like to bring an item of concern to our attention. Please contact our inspector Aaron White, or as always, you can reach out to me. We're on schedule to begin design of the roadway improvements and the East Pond this summer, with construction anticipated to start in the fall of next year. And with that, I'll hand it off to Hargraves Jones Associates for the park presentation.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. And I'll make this full screen. Okay, are you guys seeing my screen? All right.
Yes.
All right, so it's nice to be back again. We'll start with a little bit of a recap for those of you who maybe weren't involved previously. This is the site. So I think you got that from Jason's presentation just now. So you see the context and you see where we are. And then this is where we are in terms of schedule. So we've had 3 workshops. This is our 4th. So we are coming back to you with a sort of synthesis of everything we've heard and balancing that with the site constraints and feasible budget. We are coming to you with a concept design. Future work will be final design and construction, and the schedule of that is to be determined. So just to recap a little bit, the August, October, and December meetings. This is what we heard in our various outreach. Overall, a multi-use flexible space, green, passive rather than active, natural. That's what we heard a lot of. And I guess vegetation goes along with that, shade trees, native plants, etc. Specifically, we heard maybe a splash pad, maybe some playground, pickleball. We heard restrooms, and we heard pavilion, shade canopies. We heard bike skills, not necessarily a bike park, but bike skills, and definitely more importantly, connectivity. So biking in terms of getting around, getting to the park, and just connectivity in general in the district, bikes, and walking. So then we asked people, what are the 3 elements of a park that you would most like to see in this Market District Park? And we asked people to choose to check 3 of the options. So you can see by far above all the rest, paths for running and walking. So again, this idea of passive use, green space, and connectivity, very prominent in people's desires. Shade, very prominent, not just trees, but also shade pavilion if we can manage. Then you come down to playground and water play and open spaces. After that, they sort of in descending order are some of the more, what I would call more specialized program elements, including, exercise stations, skatable features, maybe public art, maybe. So there were a variety of ideas. This word cloud then sees the size of the words shows how often it was said. And this question was, what are the 3 elements of a park you would like to see at Market District Park? So again, the multi-use path, pollinator garden, farmers market space, native gardens, shade trees, pickleball, mountain biking, etc. And then what one word or phrase best describes what the Market District Park should be or feel like? So this is more like, what do you want it to feel like when you're there? What kind of place do you want in your community? And you can see community above and beyond everything else was most often said, and family friendly, inviting, safe, relaxing, welcoming, natural, fun, peaceful, inclusive, beautiful, shade, etc. Neighborhood. And then you can see in some of the smaller ones, vibrant, serene, etc. So last time we showed you these approaches, and it's very important to note that the main thing we're doing here is creating a landscape that will be a legacy for generations to come. So we're creating a landscape framework, and that's the most important thing. Then programs are things to do, elements, detailed elements within that landscape framework can change over time. But the landscape framework is what really makes a park that's a legacy out of this effort. Now that landscape can take on a variety of characters. And we talked about one as being what we called informal, or if you will, more pastoral, with program, things to do, places, more cut out within an informal, meandering kind of arrangement. More formal, more, if you will, almost more horticultural display. So more straight lines, if you will, are what we call blended, which would be more ecological, more of a gradient across the site from nature to built. We heard back from you, and we heard a lot of people liked informal, seemed comfortable, flexible, not too structured, promotes walking and circulating. Some people thought maybe the spaces were too spread out. Formal, some people liked that it was sort of, clear, distinct areas of uses, but a lot of people thought it seemed too rigid, too similar to Maclay Gardens, maybe too linear, and maybe too expensive. Then a lot of people really liked blended, the kind of idea of a nature immersive experience and more natural green spaces. We didn't really hear any cons to blended. So that left us working on a hybrid approach between informal or pastoral and blended or ecological, looking at ways to bring the best of those two approaches together into one. So here we are now to show you our current thinking that came out of that synthesis. So this diagram is really the way we found ourselves approaching the physical not constraints, but attributes of the site. Woodland more toward the north, and urban or promenade more toward the south. It working really off of the existing neighborhood adjacencies. So residential to the north, for the most part, except of course at the intersection where Sage Restaurant is, etc. But then on the south side, a much more urban edge, businesses on the other side of the street, a more active edge. So don't take these green dots as literally trees, but take this green dot as an indication of more landscape focused versus less landscape focused from north to south. And at the south edge, more active, more urban, and going as you go north, less active and urban. So this is the concept design in total. So the west, I'll move left to right, the west stormwater pond, as was just presented by Jason, underway. Very exciting to see. We hadn't seen that photograph. Kurt was texting me like, wow, it's happening. So the west stormwater pond with a path around it and planting around it. A connection then to a landscape that we're calling woodland, and then the promenade, as I just described, and then the east stormwater pond. So those are the basic sort of zones, if you will. Now note that the west stormwater, as we just saw, is being done by the city, and the east stormwater, as we just heard, will be done by the city. So we will, while we have been part of what has happened on the west stormwater and will be a part of guiding how the east stormwater is done, they will proceed as projects by the city. So given that, we'll focus now on the Central Park. The major landscape zones, and remember, the landscape zones are what we're putting in place to last generations, tens of years, if not 100 years. We have the preserve, and the preserve means we're mostly saving, we're not touching the landscape there very much. We are adding some trees, we are filling in some gaps where there's been sort of degradation of the landscape, but we're really creating a kind of nature preserve. Then you see the area within the mitten, I will say, that which we call the nature glade. So the nature glade is more of a meadow kind of landscape. It's a meadow landscape that you move through, and it has some trees and some shade, but a lot of more, lower landscape, more meadow-like. Mosswood is what we're naming the landscape that is on the north side, which is really a buffer landscape, a very green, lush, robust landscape. Clearly, you can see the central lawn is the multi-use, multi-purpose lawn to be, this would be an irrigated lawn. These other landscapes would not be irrigated. They would be more natural. This would be an irrigated lawn, one for heavy use, meaning, you know, whatever you want to do there. If it's run and play, throw a ball, throw a frisbee, or if there wants to be a community gathering of some sort, you could do that on the lawn. Then continuing to move east, you see the plaza, and the plaza connects to the parking that is reconfigured to support the park and Sage Restaurant. And the plaza would have some trees for shade. It would also have a shade structure, which you see outlined here in white. And then the other landscape type is Maclay planting. And this is planting along Maclay Boulevard, planting that's not highly ornamental, but a little more polished than what's in the nature glade. So grasses, shrubs that will flower, things that aren't really high maintenance, but things that would be beautiful and would set up a kind of landscape edge to Maclay Boulevard. And then, of course, along the south edge, the promenade. So a place that is more appropriate along that parking edge and that street edge, and to the more urban environment you see south of Maclay Commerce Drive. So then the next slide drops in the elements within those landscape types. So those landscape types, again, being the most important thing, and then these program elements dropped into that, some of which could change over time or evolve over time. So along, starting again left to right, the maintenance access for the stormwater, the west stormwater pond. So that's a requirement that maintenance access happens through what we call the mosswood and preserve landscape. Then along the pathway that winds through the nature glade, sort of separating the nature glade from the preserve, would be, along that pathway would be technical trail features. So you can imagine that pathway being a fun pathway to just explore the landscape, to learn to ride a bike, to practice bike skills, and encounter each of these technical trail features along the way. Along the promenade, lights and benches. So the orange dots are indicating lights and the dashes are indicating benches, so that this is a place to promenade, to hang out, to sit and watch the activity that's happening on the lawn, for instance. And it's lined with trees, a kind of more urban edge to the park. Then along the east side of the lawn, a seat wall, a permanent seat wall. The shade structure, as I mentioned before, because we think there needs to be a shade structure that could be used. You could have that be the stage. People could be on the lawn to watch events on the stage, or vice versa. People could be under the shade of the pavilion watching a much smaller event happening. The plaza, again, with lights. And then moving east from that, the water play area and the play area. And between them, this project will put in a pad for restrooms that would then be added. And then on the east side of Maclay Boulevard, overflow parking shown adjacent to the east stormwater pond. So I think you can see from this plan the kind of idea of the character transitioning from north to south and from west to east. So north to south, more natural, more shaded, buffer landscape to more activity on the south. And then west, again, buffer, green space, transitioning to the activities that would be closer to Maclay Boulevard, but still a landscape kind of separation, if you will. And last but not least, lest I forget, 3 pickleball courts. So along this parking along the south edge, along the promenade, 3 pickleball courts. So kids of all ages and adults and tables and chairs, flexible, movable tables and chairs in the plaza and under the shade pavilion and under the trees, making this a real hub of activity in the park. So just to give you some images of what we mean when we talk about these features, play and spray. Think about play as possibly being a kind of more nature play, as you see here with the logs. These, of course, are actual play features. Climbing features, like you see in the lower right-hand image, spray features, like you see in the upper right-hand image, and spray that can come out over your head so that it falls on you, which is kind of unique and fun. Gather and socialize, the lawn itself being one of the best play areas in any park, and just a place to gather in either as a family or as a community and to hang out as an individual. The nature glade and the planting being beautiful but not highly ornamental. So a more natural kind of planting with pathways through that planting in the nature glade. And then meander and pause around the stormwater ponds. The facilities for this catching stormwater are along that edge between the nature glade and the nature preserve, sort of that meandering path, where you might encounter trail features like these. So simple features along that trail that allow kids of all ages to explore and learn bike skills. So these are not by any means, this is not yet a final design. It's not yet a park design. There would be much detail yet to work out in future phases and more illustrative drawings to come in future phases. But this begins to give you a sense. It just takes a plan and tilts it and just pops up the vertical features. So it's diagrammatic still, but it gives you a sense of scale. And it gives you a sense of adjacencies and the various elements. So just for scale, the little dots are people. So you can see it's a very generous, wonderful scale park. It is mostly passive. It is mostly green. It is zoned in a way that is responsive to its adjacencies. And you see here Mosswood, the technical trail features, the preserve, the nature glade, the lawn, water play, parking here, water play, the restrooms, play, pickleball courts, and the promenade, and the East Stormwater Pond and overflow parking in the background. Zeroing in on really that what I described as that sort of active hub of the park in the center next to Maclay Boulevard, the Maclay planting being a buffer really to the street and a place to hang out. Pickleball play, water play, bathrooms, shade structure, seat wall, and lawn, all conveniently located near parking there next to Sage Restaurant and parking along the street on the south side as well. And then from the east, so looking across the East Stormwater Pond and the constructed wetland and seeing the path that will be able to go around those and connect across to the Central Park, the overflow parking, and then the streetscape edge that sort of connects to the larger promenade that we'll be putting in place in the Central Park. So a streetscape edge that connects to the promenade in the Central Park. And you get a sense of how there's trees and shade more along the east and north and west, and then more open lawn toward the south until you get to the promenade, which is very more formal, tree lined. So really a sort of synthesis of what we heard were the kinds of spaces that people hope to see in the park. And now again, a drone shot, if you will, from above, seeing that juncture. Now we drop down to eye level and you can see what it would be like. Let's say you've come from the west and you're walking along the north side of the project and you see the shade structure overhead and the bathrooms, movable tables and chairs, parking on the left, and lawn on the right, seat wall. And now you're down adjacent to you see the pickleball court. So you've just come from the south. You see the pickleball courts on your right, the play, restrooms, water play in the distance. And now you're on the west side, you're in the nature glade. And you can see those connective pathways within the nature glade, and then also the path that winds its way through the nature glade. Now, what we're not seeing here is what this planting would have some texture to it. It would have some three-dimensional character. It would be fluffy. It would be taller than it appears here, so that you would see a contrast between the nature glade and the lawn. So, you know, imagine some of those precedent images I showed you earlier of a more meadow kind of long grasses, butterflies, birds, lots of habitat as part of a meadow landscape. So I will turn it over to, am I turning this over or am I doing this part?
Autumn.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Great presentation. I like your use of the word fluffy. Gives you a good visual. So I just wanted to land it here with the project budget. As most people on this call are aware, this park is one component of a larger market district placemaking project. That's a blueprint project. And it's definitely a key feature, and it's going to be a really great central space for the entire market district. But there are some elements that are left that we'll need to work on after the park is completed. So the total market district placemaking project budget is $11.1 million. It's fully funded, receiving, I think, through fiscal year 2023. So, you know, the project funds are approved for the entire project budget. And this element was shown today, the concept that was shown today, is estimated to cost between $6 and $7 million. So it is within the budget. So it is we're not exceeding our budgetary limits with the concept that was presented to you today. And it does leave, you know, roughly $4 to $5 million for the remaining project elements. And those remaining project elements include pedestrian improvements around the market district, the business district there, and also connections to the surrounding neighborhoods and destinations such as Maclay Gardens State Park. So anyhow, if you guys have any questions about the budget, we're here to answer them. And of course, we'll continue to refine that budget as we actually move into the design. You know, this is at a planning level cost estimate, and we've definitely sharpened our pencils on it. But of course, as it moves forward in design, it'll be refined. And then ultimately, we'll get bids for the construction of it, and then we'll know exactly how much it is. So turning it back over to, I think maybe Kurt or.
Well, I think that that concludes our presentation. So thank you, Jason, for the stormwater and infrastructure update. And thank you, Mary Margaret, for getting us up to speed on the park concept and how we got there. We have a lot of attendees and one hand raised already. So we're going to try to get to everybody. So if you know how to use that raise hand function, great. If not, look at the bottom of your screen, click on participant, and that will help. There's also a chat function. If you want to drop comments or questions in there, we'll address them there as well. Again, if you would like to email our project team a question or have comments that you don't want to make public today, that's always an option for you too. But we're going to start. We're going to open up the floor to questions right now. And Ms. Crowder has had her hand up for a bit.
If you don't mind, I think this slide prompts me to just give a reminder of the next steps, and I think that'll with any questions that people may have about that. So this is the park concept that we have today, and we're looking to get your feedback on this concept. The next step after the series of meetings this week is to take this concept to the Blueprint Technical Coordinating Committee in the middle of May, as well as our Citizens Advisory Committee meeting on May 12th. And then ultimately we'll present a final draft concept to the IA board on May 27th. So comments that we get today, discussions from the meetings this week, as well as input from the CAC and TCC may continue to shape the park concept before it goes to the IA board meeting. So, please do provide your input because it may change a couple of things here and there. Now, we've done a lot of work to get us to where we are today. Like Mary Margaret talked about the public outreach, the survey, and all of the other work that's gone into it over the last 9 months. But it's still not to the complete product yet. And we'll be presenting that complete product at the board meeting on May 27th. So definitely give us your feedback today.
So if you do have written comments coming in, if we could have them in the next couple of weeks, like say May 1st, that would be helpful. And that'll help us wrap up and get ready for finalizing this concept.
And perhaps this is the best thing to have up during Q&A, or should we put up all our faces?
That's a good place to start, Mary Margaret, and we'll let Ms. Crowder start with her question, and if then we can go back to faces.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
I'm very pleased with this initial concept. It answers a lot of the concerns that I and a lot of my neighbors had. We live in Maclay Hammock. The other question I do have is the pathway that is on the north side of the electrical station. That is to facilitate people who want to do walking around the West Pond. Are you planning any subdued lighting on that path, just for illumination during, the darker day hours?
We actually are not showing any lighting along that path. We're concentrating, so far, we were concentrating lighting along the south and around the sort of active hub, trying to keep the rest of the park very passive, quiet, and unobtrusive to neighbors.
If that answers your question, ma'am, I think we'll move over to Mr. Avalone. You have your hand up as well.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Hi. Just to follow up on that thing about the active hub, I think Ms. Crowder just mentioned, maybe she was thinking it was along the northern path that there might be lights, but you point out there'd be sort of on the promenade. That's where the lights would be. And I think
Right.
you said, except kind of by the active areas. Is there going to be lights along the path on the north side anywhere? Like
Right.
the restaurant?
Right now, if you can see, can you see the yellow dots? We're showing lights along that edge where you would enter from parking if you parked there.
Okay.
We're showing lights along the southern edge if you've parked here, for instance.
Okay, I got it. I see him now. I wasn't sure because I live on that the south, I guess eastern, towards the closest Maclay Hammock unit that is closest to the big round lawn area.
Got it.
That corner's almost
Right
touching.
there.
So yeah, that's it. That's where I live, and I'm like, man, I'm glad that there's trees there. I didn't know what was going to be put there, so I'm glad that there's a great buffer there. I'm much more relieved. And I just little couple questions about that power line right away that's right there. It's because my fence, is right along the back of my property. Is that power line right away going to stay there? That little road that goes through there? Or is that going to be part of the new trail?
As somebody else could speak more specifically, but the right-of-way remains. We are not showing a trail within the right-of-way.
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess like right up against my fence line, like if you drive back there, there's a little road where I guess the people get the trucks and stuff get back to the electrical area. So if that's going to stay there, and I'm wondering, is there going to be a fence on the other side then? Is there going to be any fence around this park on the side by the Mosswood Chase Park or community?
Let me take the first of those. We are actually redirecting. So any access to the west stormwater pond, we are saying would do this, if you can see my cursor. So we're actually, I think that right of way has to remain, but we're actually facilitating access on this paved pathway. So we're actually pulling it a little farther away from your house, if you will.
Understood. I'm just wondering, like, for trucks to get back there to maintain the electrical stuff, is there still going to be that road there?
They should be able to drive on the path that
Oh,
the
okay.
park is building. Yeah.
Okay. And is there going to be a fence there separating the park from, like, I guess the back of my fence?
Not planned at this point.
Okay, I just was curious. Also, is this park going to have hours? And is there going to be any security on if there's like at night or something? Like if people can, just park in the parking lot, have parties or anything like that? Or I'm not sure about the lights. Did the lights ever turn off?
I'll turn to someone else to answer operational questions.
I believe the park will be a dusk to dawn park. So we're not anticipating it to have security at night. It will be run as a typical City of Tallahassee park. And typically it runs dusk to dawn like any other park in Tallahassee.
Okay, and is like the restrooms going to be locked at night, or are they just anytime people can go in there? What's the deal with that?
I believe they would be locked at night, but we still have to work that out with the City of Tallahassee. And I believe that's how the current design is working for a restroom that we're building at along FAMU Way. Autumn, do you have anything to add about that restroom facility?
Well, the restroom, no, I don't have anything to add about the restroom. I think you're right. It could be locked at night, but I think that the idea of the park to be dusk to dawn needs a little bit more detail in it, because the way that the city operates, like Cascades Park, for example, it's open where it's lit after dark. So I think that at this park that there is a benefit to keeping the areas that are actually lit, like along the promenade, have those open after dark, really because of that 18-hour market district feel. So you have restaurants, you have Gordo's right there, you have the hibachi grill down the street, so I think that there will be a benefit to keeping a portion of the park open after dark, as long as it's lit, which is the case with other city parks.
I'm just, yeah, okay, that answers my questions. And I was going to say, having lived there for a number of years, sometimes there's what I call campers who would camp in I guess the current area, which is kind of all grown up. And I'm just wondering if that's going to be a big draw for the campers to just kind of hang around there with the facilities that if they're open all the time. And anyway, so I don't know if you guys have anticipated that. I mean, being near the interstate, it's near the working sites of the campers. So I just wonder if this will become a really popular area.
In our experience with these kinds of parks, the thing that the right thing is the balance of users, right? So that there are families there are eyes on the park, it's active, it's used. It's not too active because it's not a recreational park. It's not a recreational facility. It's not ball fields, for instance, but it will be used enough so that the activity is kept to what you would hope to see in a park, responsible and reasonable. And really that people always worry about that, but it ends up not being a worry when you develop a park like this, because the fact that people are there, families are there, it becomes self-regulating to some degree. And then of course, as Autumn and Subo said, there will be signage and there will be guidelines.
Understood. I'm not worried about it. I just wondered if, if unanticipated things might come up, but yeah, I'm relieved by the buffer between the Maclay Hammock community, because that's obviously the closest actual residential dwellings to this park.
Mm-hmm.
In just in the number of feet away, so it looks like it'll be fine.
Great, thank you very much. Those are great questions. They probably were on several people's minds, so we appreciate you getting them out early. Next, we have Mr. Jim Antista, if I'm saying your name correctly, and welcome to the meeting.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for once again conducting these meetings and making very, very good presentations. I'm a resident of Hawks Nest neighborhood, and we have been following the developments of the West Stormwater Pond, and we appreciate the city's design that I think will move the maintenance road farther away from the edge of our neighborhood. And we believe that by retiring an existing bike path there, that will satisfy a lot of the neighbors that were concerned about the proximity of those trails to the neighborhood. So we appreciate that. A question, the covered structure, which I think has been referred to as a covered structure and a pavilion, is that designed to support a farmer's market, or what kinds of uses are contemplated there?
I think the uses are up to the community. So yes, definitely it could be a farmer's market. It could be any kind of sort of fun day that's staged by the community for kids. You know, I can imagine all kinds of things happening there, and that really becomes a matter of programming that the community wants.
Thank you. That's good, because I think when Hawks Nest was originally presented with this idea some years ago, we were happy that it did include a space for a farmer's market. We lost our farmer's market that was in the Market Square Shopping Center. So we're happy that there's a possibility that we could have something like that. I'm glad that the concept design is not including any kind of sophisticated bike park. I think that's a good step, and we support the passive green space nature. I say we. I'm not speaking for the neighborhood. I'm speaking for myself. One other question is, could you clarify the future elements part of the budget? Is that devoted to the park itself, or will that be devoted to streetscape issues like crosswalks? Will that have anything to do with roundabouts or any of those other things? And is that money maybe available for other elements that might want to get a second bite at the apple, so to speak, in the future to be added?
I think that it's intended for the areas around the park. So not like this is the budget for the park, and we'll build to that budget for this park. But the placemaking project does have the commitments for the pedestrian, as you mentioned, exactly what you mentioned, the pedestrian improvements, providing better access to the businesses in the district. Roundabouts have been discussed as a part of that to improve the circulation. And then the other piece is the kind of the overlap with the Timberlane Greenway project over the Market District area. And that provides connection to neighborhoods and also to Maclay Gardens State Park. So those are the elements that remaining project funds would go towards. And in terms of the timing of planning the use of those funds for those elements, because of course, you know, we could, there are lots of wonderful things that could be done, probably way more than what we actually have budget available for. So there needs to be a prioritization process to develop, you know, how those funds are used and applied, right? So that process will start this fall, but we wanted to get this park concept wrapped up and the design underway for the park, and then begin the planning effort that's necessary for identifying the use of those remaining funds, that $4.5 to $5 million. The planning department, Tallahassee-Leon County Planning Department, is working on an update to the placemaking plan that was adopted, which is really kind of the genesis for this park project and the improvements around the district. And that effort will start this summer in advance of the blueprint prioritization of the remaining funds this fall. So that's really, if you're interested in how those remaining funds are implemented into the rest of the district area, as well as the connection to the neighborhoods, then please do participate in that planning effort this summer, because that's really the precursor to the prioritization of the blueprint funds. And we have the list, and I know Jim, I know you personally. It's great to see you or hear you, and we can make sure you get that you're added if you're not already on the list for getting information from the planning department.
Thank you very much. That's great. Just one final comment. I think this is an excellent concept design. It's very true to what we learned 2 years ago when it was first proposed. I really appreciate the designers placing the parking and the pavilion in areas where it would have less impact on the adjacent neighborhood. I think that's an excellent idea. So all in all, I think this is just a wonderful design, and I really commend the city and Blueprint for what they're doing.
Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it. Next, we're going to go to Dave, who has his hand up and has been waiting patiently. Welcome, Dave, to the meeting.
Hello. Am
We
I
can
on?
hear you. Perfect. Thank
Great.
you.
I really appreciate this whole process so far. Will there be any opportunities for any significant last minute changes in what was presented today as it goes forward? Significant.
Well, I can speak as a design process. I mean, the next step of a design process is what we would call schematic design and design development, where you would get into materials and exact sizes of the elements you see here, like the widths of the pathways, and choosing the lights and choosing the furniture. But the concept is setting in place the elements and the relationships and the overall scales of each of the places within the park.
No, I'm not a detailed person. I just want to know if there's any big, huge, significant changes, if you're going to, put a swimming pool in there at the last minute and that kind of stuff. Have we already gotten past that point of the process?
We are past that point in the process, and I guarantee you this is very carefully modulated against budget.
Great. Thank you. The one other question I had, Ms. Calder, when she put up her schematic of the budget, it had all the green lines. Are those going to be bike paths, and are they going to be improved from what is there right now? Or is that something I don't understand?
Let's, I'm not sure who's running the presentation. Would you mind maybe clicking forward on that? I'm sure.
Green lines.
It's probably the Timberlane
Oh,
Greenway.
yeah.
Yes. But
yeah,
are,
exactly
are all those things going to be bypassed?
Okay, so what those are, are from the Timberlane Greenway concept. The Timberlane Greenway concept comes from the Tallahassee-Leon County Greenways Master Plan that was adopted in 2015. So those are overlaid on top of this area where we have our blueprint placemaking project. And those could be bike, they could be ped, or they could be both. So some of that is yet to be determined. But the intent is to improve the connectivity to and around the Market District for bicycle or for mainly pedestrian within the Market District itself. But as you get a little bit further out, I definitely would put in the bicycle side of it.
So are those going to be improved?
That is the concept for which we will start. As I mentioned, we're going to go into that next round in the fall of this year. So, how exactly, the main point is the connectivity, like for example, to Maclay Gardens. Is that ultimately the most preferred and best route to Maclay Gardens? Maybe not. But this is where we're going to start because that's what comes from the adopted Greenways Master Plan. But I'm excited to hear that you're kind of mentally moving on to the next step of this project. That's a good sign for us. Do you have anything specific that you wanted to point out about these green lines?
Well, I live by them, and so I have grave concerns as to what they become. So will
Yeah.
this process be open when those decisions are made too?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that'll start this summer. The placemaking plan update, I think, is going to be maybe more focused on the business district side, but certainly the next iteration this fall. And if you're on our mailing list, I'm sure you've seen the postcards if you live in this area, you'll be notified of that project and how to be involved in those decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, thanks.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, if you're still with us, it's your turn.
I am Jennifer. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to start out that the design is beautiful. There's a lot of passive green areas and with trees and landscapes and meadows, and I think that's great. I think that'll be beautiful. I do have a few concerns. I'm hearing restrooms, and when I hear restrooms, I automatically think of people that are going to try to live there for free. And that makes me a little bit concerned because it's going to lower the value of my house. When I heard the lady say that although it's dusk to dawn, it might be open after dark, and I'm thinking the bathroom's open, it's really a grave concern of mine. So I'm hoping that you guys can like close, if you have the bathrooms, close them at a reasonable time, like 5 o'clock or so that we can disinvite people from actually living there. My next concern is, I'm not sure if I understood this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was looking at the meander and pause, what I think I saw pictures of was a skateboard park and bike trails.
I think you're referring to this. What you see on the left is just a path around a wetland pond, like very similar to what will be there. On the right, you do see a kid with a training wheels on their bike on a meandering path learning to bike. Maybe you're referring to this one. There would be 5 along that meandering path. There would be 5 of these. So there would be little places along the path where you would have, like a little boardwalk, like you see here, or a little boardwalk with a hill, or maybe, a tube like this that you would bike through. So there would be 5 of these along that meandering pathway, very small.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that there are no skateboards or skateboard park or skateboard, I don't know how you would even say it a different way, but there'd be no skateboards at that park.
We are not designing any skateboard facilities, correct?
Good, okay, thank you. That alleviates some of my pain.
But Jennifer, I do want to clarify that there may be people that bring their skateboard and use this park. Now, I don't believe them using it in an inappropriate way would be tolerated, but I do think that, people may skate through the park as they maybe do through your neighborhood or through any city street.
But you're not like making the facilities for them to really want to come here to skateboard. And I don't remember what those things are called with skateboards. Usually what happens when you have them, they're all spray painted on. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's one in the city and it's all spray painted on.
Right. Yeah, that's the Blankenship Park. Yeah, the Mike Blankenship Park. Right. So this design does not include a skate destination, a skate park.
Okay, but you're saying that they can still bring their skateboards, and are people biking, walking, and skating on the same path?
There will be some shared use paths in this park, and there could be facilities where you would have all of those users. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, I'm from Clay-Hammock, and we've got, it's mainly like 50 or 55 over here, and walking with people in that area that is for skateboarding and bikes as well does not make walkers feel safe in walking in that area. And I think that's a situation. And then that really gives me grave concerns with that one, actually. That's
Well,
probably
I think the key is how we design it as you go into detailed design. For instance, the meandering path that goes between the preserve and the glade, the nature glade, is not something anybody's going to bike on except a very small child on a tricycle or a small bike with training wheels, because you just can't go fast enough, for instance. So I think,
Gotcha.
and the connective paths between it would be like crushed stone. So I think it all comes down to designing it in an appropriate way that actually zones for the different kind of uses in a way that is safe and reasonable.
Okay, so that one part you just showed me, people wouldn't bike on because it's just, you can't go fast enough on that. It would just be little kids on there.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know someone asked this question before, but will the bathrooms be locked at some point in time?
I think we still have to work that out once the facility is designed with the Parks and Rec, with the maintaining entity of the park is where we were leaving that once I discussed that with Autumn.
In Parks and Recreation, the maintenance entity, City of Tallahassee Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Affairs will be the maintenance entity, and we'll discuss it with them. I mean, they've got, they've won national awards for the parks that they have here in the city. It's a amazing park system that we have in Tallahassee, and they are absolutely the masters and experts on operating a more urban park such as this versus the more rural parks. Leon County is incredible rural parks. So I think that, using their input and knowledge of operating hours for the restrooms as well as the lit areas of the park is going to be key. It's same with the skateboarding comment. I mean, we see, skateboard users in Cascades Park, but I'm not sure that there's really been the conflicts there between the different types of users.
And of course, the positive side of providing restrooms is you can have water play, because you can't really have water play without adjacent bathrooms. And, it will attract families. I mean, it was one of the number one things we heard that would be important in this park. But management and operations will be key to make sure the whole thing is kept safe.
Okay. Now you showed me the curvy part where the walking would be. Can you point out where the biking would be?
Well, I think bicyclists will come on the streets and they'll arrive at the park entrances, often adjacent to parking areas. Bikes will tend to arrive in the same way. I would think that bikes will tend to stay on the perimeter. Anybody trying to get somewhere on their bike is not going to go through the park. They're going to keep going in the fastest way they can. And anybody on their bike coming to the park, I think, will get off their bike once they've arrived at the park. Now, there may be some cyclists who like to come off Maclay Boulevard and go along the north path and then go around the west Stormwater Pond and then, back out. There might be some bicyclists who would want to do that, but anybody trying to go fast on a bike is not going to do that because they're trying to get somewhere.
Okay. Okay. If I have any other questions, I'll have my husband ask you at tonight's meeting. Thank you for your help.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have Pat Stevens up next. Pat?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I think I'm your last person. I thought somebody else would maybe ask this question, but and Jason Smith will recall, we are concerned because we've talked to him, and I'm more about the the West Pond stormwater and the route that that will take, when you look at the estimated costs slide, it shows up as a little water area that comes down through. It looks like it originates in up above, up near Maclay, the state park and Bobbin Brook, and then it comes down, and it doesn't really become a problem until it hits, crosses that underneath bridge at Timber Lane and those neighbors that reside on Trillium. And our concern is that stormwater would add more to that. And Jason had said he didn't think that it would previous, but I always want to talk about it. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
Hey, Ms.
okay.
Stevens. Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. Good to speak with you again. Yeah, the good news is the West Stormwater Facility has been designed in a way that we're actually capturing runoff from almost 40 acres of developed area that previously did not route through any stormwater facilities. And that's primarily to the north and west of the West Pond. That area just kind of drained around the existing pond and straight down that ravine that you just described towards Timber Lane. So we were able to route that water through our pond and attenuate that, which means that we're slowing it down and releasing it at a rate that's lower than the pre-development conditions. So if anything, I would anticipate a slight improvement in your situation, but for sure, no kind of decrease or in any kind of
Okay,
your
and
concerns down there.
And maybe you can help us, just direct us, because I think this probably maybe even falls under the Leon County Planning Department, that we should talk to them. Because we are to the point where we have to do something, where we're having cave-in on the adjacent walls of where that water runs through. And we have to do something ourselves to try to fix it, because we're not that far from our house with it.
Sure.
And if you could just direct us who to approach about this, and if it's something we have to cover ourselves, then probably sooner that we get on that than later, in terms of saving that wall.
Sure. How about if I just reach out to you guys outside of this meeting and
That would
we
be
can talk
great.
a little bit more about it? I still have y'all's contact info.
Okay, great.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to remind people who are attending today that if something should come to mind, a question you didn't get to ask this afternoon, we have 2 more meetings coming up, one tonight at 6 and one tomorrow morning. Go to our website too. All this information will be posted there after the meeting on Thursday, but you'll find contact information for all the project team and a way to leave comments or ask a question there. Also, you can call any of us. All our contact information is there as well. So if something should come to mind, don't forget you have other ways to reach out. And next we'll go to Ms. Calder, who has had her hand raised.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, my only thing that I would like to mention is that as you move into the future, that every attempt be made to make this thing take in consideration energy efficiency, and this would be in keeping with the city's clean energy plan about being energy neutral by 2050, and considering using the latest technology having to do with solar power and lighting and things like that. I mean, I think that's really important as we move forward. I know you're not quite at that stage, but just want to have it on your radar. And that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming this afternoon. We have a few more hands raised. Ms. Saxon, you're up.
Okay, this is Gail and Jeannie, and we're neighbors in Avalon. And when you mentioned that the pavilion could be used for maybe outdoor concerts and stuff, how is the noise going to be addressed? A buffer for the noise?
We're not designing a specific performance venue. We're not anticipating that this would be major concerts or anything like that. As you can see in this view, what the park is designing is a lawn area and a small plaza area and a shade structure. And then the play areas and the restroom in the background. So how this park is used will really be something that Parks and Recreation will be monitoring and programming. And I assume there will continue to be community input and community outreach into that. But we are definitely not designing it as a performance venue.
Okay. Right. And there is a lot of traffic flowing down McClay Boulevard from McClay Road and vice versa. I just don't know how that's going to be when you've got little kids up there, and I see there's a walkway across from the east to the west side when there's so much traffic. I mean, there's times when we have to sit quite a while just to get out of our neighborhood.
Right, that crosswalk would either need to join with a light or it would need to have a pedestrian signal, I think.
Okay. And what did you?
Well, this is Jeannie, and I just wanted to, it seems like other people are thinking the same way I was thinking earlier on about the restrooms being locked up from a certain time, late night till in the morning. I just see that as really being problematic if they're open all night. And another thing I wanted to say is, let me see how to put this. Having been a teenager and raised teenagers, I know teenagers like to congregate and sometimes they can play their music very loud. What sort of oversight will there be in this situation? Should that occur? Would it be the people who are like maintaining the park, or would it be something where if we can't sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, we've got to call TPD? The noise mainly and the unlocked restrooms would be my main concerns.
It would be the maintaining entity that would address that. So first, our first method would be to reach out to the city Parks and Recreation folks, and then we may have to call TPD in some circumstances. Usually most issues can be resolved prior to reaching out to the police department. So hopefully just because the park would be used by good users, we avoid the issue of it being used by bad users. So by having good people there, it dissuades the bad usage of a park. You can see that at Cascades Park. It's open more hours than not, as Autumn was talking about the 18-hour park. So in the areas where it's lit, we haven't had those issues.
Okay, two other things, and one is everybody's trying to tiptoe around it, but it is an issue with the homeless. We've already had to call in our neighborhood several times. Neighbors have had to call about homeless wandering around, coming up to the houses and the back doors and stuff. And number two, when we started our neighborhood watch years ago, the police informed us that because of the proximity to the interstate, that this would be considered high crime. So how is this park going to address I don't know, I guess Parks and Rec are going to have to address some of these issues.
And again, I think that the community is getting geared up to do that by bringing in the good users to the park. And bringing out some of the, I guess, providing services to the unhomed populations. I know that, I think you're going to have to believe it to see it, but we have addressed some of these issues at other parks in our community. And unhomed people are allowed to be in the parks, but when they cause a problem, the park staff will deal with it. First, they'll try to do it on their own, and when they can't handle it, they'll bring in TPD. So in most cases, it's really not a problem until there is one. So hopefully you'll see that by building a park in your community, you'll see the problem become less of a problem instead of a greater problem.
And on the pickleball courts, I know they're quite loud. Having lived in the villages, haven't had a stay at home in the villages, we are very familiar with pickleball parks, and they can be quite loud. But will they set up with the Parks and Rec Department reservations, or is it just going to be free for all?
Well, I don't have that answer right now for you. I'll have to reach out to the Parks and Rec staff to see how that will work. And I will be happy to do that.
Okay, are you done?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies. And the design is very nice. We're very pleased with it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice talking to you both.
Thank you very much. We have joining us today Commissioner Rick Miner, who has his hand raised as well. So I'd like to welcome him to the meeting. Commissioner.
Hi, Susan. Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Listen, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating this afternoon. It really does help us. Your comments from today, from the meeting later this evening, and then tomorrow, they will all be incorporated into an agenda item for the Blueprint Board on May 27th. So we will hear everything that you've said, but I couldn't wait. I had to get a preview of the comments, and just wanted to thank Ms. Calder, our Blueprint Director, and the entire team. I can tell everyone listening, I can tell you this, these are talented people. They work very hard, and they are our neighbors. They live here, and they're working in really good faith to do a great job to serve the community. So kudos to all of you on the Blueprint team, and thanks to everyone again for participating today. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you very, very much. I see Jennifer's back. Jennifer, you have a new question for us this afternoon.
I do. It's a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that you guys are doing to prevent bikes and skateboarding coming through Maclay Hammock? Or is it going to be easy to get out of the park and then into where Maclay Hammock is?
I can start. We're not creating any connections.
Okay.
To the neighborhood. So it would be along the street.
The street. Okay.
I mean, which you can't stop people from being on the sidewalk, but but we're not creating any connections.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ted, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Quick questions. Picnic tables, any plans for picnic tables going up there? I'm thinking of like, are people gonna have birthday parties there? Is it gonna be like a destination kid birthday party place? And if so, are people gonna have to reserve them, or is that a whole Park and Rec thing?
Well, A, yes, B, Parks and Rec thing.
So there is picnic tables. There will be.
There will be movable tables and chairs. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like, also, is cooking allowed? I don't know if there's any plans for any grills, kind of like Maclay has.
There are currently not any grills in the cost profile.
Okay, last question. Dogs, are dogs going to be allowed?
That's a question for Parks and Rec, I think.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Well, we don't have a dog park per se planned in the park, but I think people will be able to walk their dogs in the park.
Yeah.
With lots of stations with dog pickup bags.
And probably on leashes.
Definitely leashes, yeah.
Similar to what's in Cascades Park now, which is, dogs have to be on leashes and perfect. Thank you, Ted. Any more questions? No, not from Ted. Ms. Calder, you're back. The floor is yours. We're going to give Ms. Calder a minute to unmute. See if I can give her a hand here.
never mind. Just go on. Thank you. My husband left. He had a question, but he left.
Perfect. Well, if he, please send it to us. We'll get it answered for you any way we can. And then we have Mr. or Ms. Hanson with the hand raised.
Hello, I'm Sue Hanson. I'm in Maclay Hammock. I'm sorry I couldn't join sooner, and maybe I'll try and join again this evening if I can, but I just wanted to reiterate what I've heard about the concerns about lights, noise, crime, etc. Our bedrooms are literally backing up to this park. And I know I keep hearing you say, well, we'll build it and let's see what comes and then we'll deal with it. And you say, quote, good people. And I'm not sure what that means because, there may be quote unquote good teenagers who go in there and party. They're not necessarily bad kids, but they're creating a noise and light disturbance and nuisance for elderly people in the surrounding areas who want to sleep. So I'm just reiterating, and I'm on the board in Maclay Hammock. We're watching this carefully. And I believe it looks like and I'm sorry I haven't kept up to date, but it seems like the original proposals for all the skateboard ramps and the bike trails have been minimized or lessened, and more of an approach to a natural park, a park for walking, for kids, for dogs. And I hope that's the case. And that's all. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
And that's correct. Yes.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you very much. I think Sue has an update on the pickleball question we received earlier regarding our reservation system through the city.
Yes, I was able to send a text to the staff at Parks and Rec, and they did confirm that the pickleball would require reservations. And then Mrs. Hanson, in regards to what good park usage meant, and what I mean by that is that there are rules that go with using parks, and by following park rules, that's good usage. People that come in and abide by the park rules that are in place. And when people are not following those rules, the staff will address that. And when people don't listen to the park staff, then the park staff will elevate that to other people, and that being TPD or the appropriate entity, who that may be. So if the teenagers are good teenagers that are not following the rules, then they will have to follow their consequences. People need to make good choices. So we're hoping to build a park that all citizens can use. But thank you, and I really appreciate all of your input to this process. You've been it's been wonderful having conversations with you through these 3 months. Thank you.
And if I could just add to what Sue has just said, we have our experience in cities and towns all over, building a park actually is a better neighbor than neglected open land. So people tend to misbehave more, do all the things that you're worried about more if it's just land that is neglected. When there's an actual park, actually, these concerns tend to not be as present.
Thank you, Mayor Margaret, for that. That's helpful. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Steve Cutshaw. Welcome to the meeting, Mr. Cutshaw.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a question about pickleball. Was there input from the surveys that caused you to generate the idea that we needed pickleball courts in the park? Well,
we did hear a number of people who asked for pickleball courts, yes.
Okay. The reason I ask, I'm the president of the Avalon and Maclay Homeowners Association. We don't have, first of all, we don't have teenagers hardly at all in our area, but I don't even know what pickleball is. And I don't know if my neighbors do. And I don't know if any of our neighbors, and I know most of them, of the 127 homes, I've been the president for 10 years. I don't know anybody ever talked to me about pickleball. Why do we need a pickleball court or courts?
I think we got input from people beyond the directly adjacent neighborhoods, and we did get some input from the directly adjacent neighborhoods as well for pickleball and children's play. Those were the two things we heard the most.
Okay, is the pickleball court concept an absolute that it must be, we must have pickleball courts?
We're designing a park that's responsive to the public input we've received.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I don't know of anyone in Avalon or anyone that I know of in Maclay Hammock, the two most closely adjacent neighborhoods to the park, that are interested in pickleball. So I'm not sure why we have it. That's just a question I think should be discussed and asked to a wider group. Now, if you're trying to bring people from other neighborhoods who are interested in pickleball because they don't have any pickleball courts, which we don't have either, it's puzzling to me. So you think we could find out from more of the people who are interested in the park's activities, are they really and truly interested in pickleball? Or is this something that the designers decided we should be interested in?
I assure you, this is not something we dreamed up. We
Okay.
could go back to the chart if you'd like that showed the number of responses we got.
I
And
know,
then,
I've looked at that, I participated in it.
okay. So we're strictly reflecting the number of people who asked for pickleball courts and the number of people who participated in this public forum.
Okay.
You know,
And while we're on the same subject, right next to the pickleball courts, did someone in the design concept decide that we need restrooms?
well, no, this is something that was requested, highly requested.
Okay.
And if you have water play, you have to have adjacent restrooms, and water play was highly requested.
Okay. So water play is necessary because people need to wash up?
You have to let kids go to the bathroom when they're playing in water.
All right. Okay. Do we know what size these restrooms might be? Are they male, female? Are they?
They are actually elsewhere and so maybe Sue can speak to them because they exist elsewhere.
They what?
We have not designed it completely yet, but what we would probably end up doing is doing like family style restrooms. So
Yes.
it would be suitable for all users. And if we would try to do the smallest bathroom that we could, which was going to be similar to one that we're proposing to be, that we're building at FAMU Way near the Skatable Art Park. And I think I'm shy on the details right now, but I believe it may be a 3-stall restroom. But
Well, the reason I ask for those people who are concerned that they might have vagrants or homeless or people coming to use the restrooms because they don't have any facilities of their own, or staying too long in the restroom, or creating hazards for young people coming into the restrooms and having predators hanging around restrooms. The fewer there are and the smaller they are means that there's less inclination for people to congregate.
yes, Mr. Cutshaw, we are working with Parks and Rec, who's very adept at dealing with that issue. They're very good at that at Cascades Park, and we've learned from the larger restrooms that used to be at Tom Brown Park. They've demoed some of those really bad restroom designs, and we're trying to be very good at dealing with that particular issue. So we are very what's the word I'm trying to use? We're very concerned and invested in that issue as well, and trying to address it.
Thank you very much. One more quick question about the, I guess it would be the design facilities. No discussion today about roundabouts. Maybe that's a separate issue. I know Jason's in stormwater, but my understanding was that roundabouts were going to be designed before the park. Has that changed? I'm talking about the roundabout that shows on the maps that's going to be at the intersection of Maclay Boulevard and Maclay Commerce. I don't know how you're going to get the space to build one, but is anyone concerned about that problem?
Hey, Mr. Cutshaw, I think Randy Lane is in on the call, and I think he just unmuted himself. He's our resident roadway expert. Randy, are you going to chime in on that?
Yeah, I was trying to get my video to turn on for some reason. It's not, so I'll just talk. Yes, sir, Mr. Cutshaw. The roadway design is going to be basically concurrent with the design of the park and so forth. We do have a concept plan. We've done traffic modeling out to 2036, and we believe that probably a roundabout is the best option to move traffic through those intersections and not affect the intersections that are downstream, I'll say, or south of there.
Okay.
And
well, I know that the intersection between Maclay Boulevard and Maclay Commerce is very problematic, because if you try to turn left from Maclay Boulevard or right, going the other way on the Maclay Commerce, it's a long wait sometimes during the evening of rush hour.
Yes,
how are you going to get enough space to build the roundabout?
Well, we're kind of sliding the road to the north, which is onto some of the city property. But we will have, we're showing now a little bit of right of way that will need to be taken from the adjacent, or two of the adjacent properties.
Okay.
So we have a pretty good conceptual design. I've used that intersection for many years, and I can assure you I am very familiar with how that operates if you're on Maclay Commerce Boulevard going either direction and want to make a left turn, especially at 5 o'clock.
Are you planning to tear down the what used to be the Tallahassee Memorial drive-through facility?
No, sir. No, sir. We're looking at maybe a little bit of right-of-way acquisition there, but we're trying to push the actual roundabout back to the north so that we absolutely minimize impacts to both of those businesses on those corners.
So will you have to fill in some of the stormwater pond that's existing right there now? Or they use more of the land that's already part of the park?
We will use the land that's part of the park, but the stormwater facility is going to be changed from what you see out there now.
Okay.
And as those utility poles were moved to allow us to make some of these improvements.
Okay. So I just had to ask because I've worked with some engineers designing other facilities like this, and there's just not enough room right now for there to be a roundabout. That's question one. Let me ask you a question two about, is there still planned to be a roundabout at Martin Hurst Boulevard?
Yes, sir. The current concept plan does have a roundabout at Martin Hurst also, and that also allows for trucks to turn around and utilize that area also, and provide access to the electrical substation through there.
Okay, so it's as much for the electrical substation because it's simply a right turn if you turn off Martin Hurst Road on the Maclay Commerce Boulevard. It's just a right angle turn. It's only a two-way, so you're making it a three-way so they can go into the substation.
I'm not sure I'm following you, but
if you come up Martin Hurst Boulevard and you turn right, you go right on to Maclay Commerce. If you go to the left, you will run into the substation.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to make a three-way roundabout?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cutshaw, can you see our screen? I've shared my screen with the current concept that I think shows what you're right here, what you're talking about.
Right, okay.
So that's the current concept that's being proposed.
My question simply is, why do you need a roundabout instead of a simple stop sign with a left-right turn?
Well, another reason for the roundabout is you can see where the green is. That'll be a raised median. So we will not have an access to those other businesses. So that also allows for people that are going westbound on Maclay Commerce to go around that roundabout and come back around to service those businesses.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things that, you know, we're looking at. We also anticipate there's an increased traffic on Martin Hurst, you know, in the future. And it provides access, you know, to the park where you can see there's a little bit of parking there on the north side of the roadway.
Yes.
Service park.
Okay.
And my name is on the website also. You're welcome to call me at any time and we can talk about it. I can bring you, you know, our concept plans out and be glad to show you anything that I have.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Goodbye.
I thank you very much. I know it's a little past 3:30, but we have several people with hands raised. So we're going to stay on the line on this meeting to get your questions answered. If you have to jump off, we appreciate you attending this afternoon. Understand that you may have other engagements and obligations this afternoon. So thanks for joining us. And next we'll go to back to Ms. Gail Saxon.
I just wanted to let you guys know I do live in Avalon, and we do know what pickleball is, and we do like to play pickleball, and so does Jeannie. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you very much. And we have Ms. Hanson back on the line as well.
I will find it and get it to you. You need the statement from DFAS, DFAS. Okay. Right. Okay, I'll find it.
Sue, your phone is on.
Yeah, Ms. Hanson, we aren't able to hear. Maybe there's a phone.
I'm sorry. I thought I muted. I'm very sorry.
No problem. But we're here to answer any questions you have. So go right ahead.
Oh, me?
Yes, you had your hand raised?
Okay, sorry. Yes, I did. That's another call about income tax. Okay, just was going to add a little bit about the issue of the pickleball. I'm not familiar with the game myself, but I understand it's a game engaged in mostly by people who are older. In other words, my impression is it's not a lively, loud, or active thing. And I do know of at least one person in Maclay Hammock who actively plays pickleball. I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate that. And Ms. Calder, you have your hand raised. You have a question.
I'm sorry, something about my computer keeps doing this. I really apologize.
No problem. We just didn't want to miss, if you had a question or a comment you wanted to leave, we didn't want to miss you. No problem at all. Okay. Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised. So if there are no more questions, we will wrap up this meeting. Thank you to everyone who took time out this afternoon to attend. We appreciate your comments. And if you want to join us, we'll be back at 6. Thanks.